Hello there and welcome back to Field Study, an exploration into the wild food of the British Isles. So coming up in today's episode, I'm going to be showing you how to forage for one of the UK's most abundant, delicious and easy to identify mushrooms. Stay tuned. So here we have the common parasol mushroom. Look at that beauty of a specimen. I've just had to do a little bit of light trespass to get this out of a cow field. But it is an absolutely beautiful specimen and an excellent one to teach with. It's a prime example of what a parasol should look like. This is a delicious edible mushroom. There are some lookalikes in the UK that can cause you gastric upset. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to identify this, the common parasol, and tell it apart from its potentially hazardous lookalikes. Now, the first key identifier that we have the true parasol, is its size. Look how big this mushroom is. The first half of its Latin binomial is Macrolepiota, macro being the opposite of micro, so big, not small, and this certainly is big. Look at this chonky mushroom, potentially one of the biggest mushrooms that you'll find in the UK. The cap is bigger than my hand, and I spotted these from right the way on top of that hill behind me, so it just shows you how big these are. So first, make sure you are looking at a big mushroom like this one. There we go, there's my head for size. This mushroom does have smaller lookalikes which could potentially be toxic. They are the lepiotas. So this is a macrolepiota, a big lepiota, and its lepiota cousins are the much smaller ones. So make sure you're looking at a big mushroom, and that will rule out the lepiotas, the smaller ones that you can find here in the UK. Now, look at this cap. It is a very distinctive pattern and one that you might be familiar with if you've been foraging for dryad saddle mushrooms before. It's what happens when the cap outgrows the skin on the outside. So when this flushes and starts to put on growth, it sort of grows at such a speed that the skin on the outside starts to rip and tear. And it leaves behind this beautiful sort of like feather texture. In the middle of the cap, we have a quite pronounced umbo, sort of like a nipple, and that has this strange warty texture, which almost looks like bits of ice breaking off an ice cap, or lava as it cools in a lava flow. It's sort of like warts and sort of like a crackly texture. So look out for that crackled texture on the umbo. That is another identifier of this species. Underneath the cap, we have these beautiful white gills. You'll find them white like this to a sort of more straw colour as it matures, but they will always be sort of paler in comparison to everything else. So on top of the cap, you've got this distinct patination, this sort of feathering effect with an umbo in the middle, which is sort of crackled. That's a very important texture. We'll come back to that later. And underneath the cap, you have these beautiful gills that are white to off-white. So an interesting thing about the macrolepiotas is this ring, the skirt that goes round the stem or the stipe. Look how fleshy that is. It looks like it's made of marshmallow. But one of the things which is unique to this family is that because of that fleshiness, you can separate it from the stem itself very carefully. And it will slide up and down the stem. You see, that is completely detached there. So you can slide it up and down the stem like so. Almost like putting up an umbrella or a parasol. Oh, it broke. Now that puts us firmly in the Macrolepiota family. Now in that family, there are a few that could make some people ill. Not everyone's affected by it, but in that family, there are some that can cause gastric upsets. So like stomach complaints, maybe vomiting and nausea, that sort of thing. So unpleasant, not fatal, but realistically, you don't want to be thinking about that when you're eating your dinner, do you? But thankfully, and the reason we teach this as a beginner mushroom here in the UK is that there is one key feature that you can use to rule out all of those ones that could give you a stomach upset. And it is this pattern on the stem. If you look on the stem of the mushroom and even on younger mushrooms before the cap has fully opened, you will see this pattern, which is caused by the mushroom growing really, really rapidly. So similar to the texture in the middle of the cap, that sort of crackly effect, we have this snake skin effect which runs up the stem of the mushroom. Now, you will not find this snakeskin effect on any of the other members of the parasol family that could give you a gastric upset. So the shaggy parasol has got a completely smooth stem. So if you find one with a smooth stem, I'd leave it behind if you're a beginner. Like I say, these things don't make everybody ill. So if you are feeling a little bit brave later on down the line and you are more confident with IDing mushrooms, then maybe try a little bit of the shaggy parasol and see if it reacts with your body. But this one here is a good edible for everyone. You'll notice here where I've picked it, it's got this beautiful bulbous base which has mycelium attached to it. It is like a big bulbous club on the end of the mushroom, and that is beautiful. Hello. Now there's one other really strange thing about this mushroom, and that is, oh, there we go, just take the skirt off there. And that is, to attach to the cap, it's actually got a ball and socket joint. So if you sort of move this like this, sort of wiggle it around. Oh no, it broke. You can see that rounded bit there fits into the cap almost perfectly. So you can reattach. It's broken. Classic. Doesn't always work, you know. So once you have crossed off all of those things, you can be sure that what you are looking at is a true parasol mushroom and one to take home for the cook pot. Now, I'm going to take home this. It's a very sort of mature specimen, so this is going to be tough and fibrous and woody. So I will probably chuck that somewhere where the mycelium might take hold, like behind me. And the cap is coming home with me. Thank you for watching, and for more information on foraging for wild edible plants and fungi, hit the subscribe button. Until next week, take care. Ta-da! Idiot.